The Asics Metaspeed Sky Plus and the Nike Vaporfly 3. Two of the best carbon-plated racing shoes that you can buy right now, but which one's right for you? That's going to come down to what you're looking for in a race shoe. To say that I'm surprised that I'm making this video is a bit of an understatement. The Asics Metaspeed Sky Plus is an old shoe now. It's approaching a year and a half old. It has been with us for quite some time, and no one has really made this comparison because I think everyone, myself included, figured that we would have a replacement for the Sky Plus for the fall 2023 marathon racing season. But here we are. We don't. Therefore, comparing the Asics Metaspeed Sky Plus to the Nike Vaporfly 3 is still extremely relevant. As always, the best place to start is to look at the specs. So if we start with the Asics Metaspeed Sky Plus, what we're looking at here is 37 mil of foam in the heel, 32 mil of foam in the forefoot, giving you a 5 mil drop. Now these are Running Warehouse's specs, not the specs from Asics. So these include the insole, they include the outsole. This is all of the midsole that you actually have. The shoe weighs 7.2 ounces or 204 grams, making it fairly lightweight, though not the lightest weight. And of course, that's the US size 9, reference size that's used everywhere. For the Nike Vaporfly 3, we have a much more, I would call it, subtle shoe here. So in the heel, we have 38 mils of foam. In the forefoot, we have 30 mil of foam, giving you an 8 mil drop. This shoe weighs 6.5 ounces or 184 grams, which is extremely lightweight. This is the lightest weight super shoe there is. Yes, the Adidas Evo 1 is slightly lighter, but I wouldn't put that as far as a mainstream super shoe right now for fall 2023. Let's move on to the fit and overall usability of these shoes. So starting with the Asics Metaspeed Sky Plus, I'm going to say that the build quality and the fit and finish of this shoe, like you would expect from any Asics shoe, is absolutely outstanding. And this shows no different, especially as a race shoe. You're getting a very premium shoe here. Now, for as far as the fit, Asics' motion wrap technology, which is their upper, I'm going to be very clear, and I've said this in other videos, but I think this upper that Asics has on all of its race shoes, but especially this shoe, is the best upper that you can get on a racing shoe right now in fall of 2023. It is absolutely outstanding in the way it locks down the foot, in the midfoot and the heel, and the way it conforms to the foot. So it gives you a race fit without being too constricting, which is a fine balance, but they managed to do that with this upper material. This upper material feels like the natural evolution of what Nike had on the original Next Percent 1 of the Vaporweave upper. But this is a softer material, it's less plasticky, it's more breathable, but it has the same basic qualities, just better. So outstanding upper, and the fit when you put your foot into this is almost perfection. And I'll get to the almost in a moment. Now, this shoe, putting your foot into it, fits the way you would expect a running shoe to fit. You put your foot in it, you pull the tongue a little tight, you lace it up, and you're locked in, you're ready to race. It's not a finicky upper to get your foot in the right place. It doesn't require a lot of relacing and shuffling around like a Vaporfly. We'll get to that. It's just you put your foot in and you go, and it's absolutely outstanding. Now, the one fit problem that I have with this upper, and it's not even really the upper's fault, it's more the midsole, is that starting about here, going to about here, there's a little lip in the foam of the midsole that comes up and wraps around the foot, just a few millimeters, but what it does is it presses the edge of the midsole around the pinky toe down. So it does create a rub point for your pinky toe, particularly if you have a wider forefoot. Generally, it's not a problem, but when it did bother me in this shoe, it did bother me quite a bit. But that was maybe 1 out of, every 5 runs. So it wasn't every run, and I don't know what triggered it because I wore the same socks every time in this shoe, a pair of Asics socks. So I don't know what triggered that, but that's my one fault I have with the way this shoe fits. Now moving to the Vaporfly 3, I'm going to be honest, I love this shoe, But there are a few sort of things that maybe not everyone's going to love as much as I do. Now, I think the upper on the Vaporfly 3 is really, really good. I don't think it's as good as the upper that's on the Metaspeed Sky Plus or what Asics is using, but I think it's an outstanding upper. And for my foot shape, which is I would say a moderately high arch with a higher volume foot, this fits me really well. I also have somewhat of a wider forefoot, so I have ample room. I have ample good lockdown, and I'm not getting any kind of weird, like having to pinch my laces in too much on this shoe. It's a great upper for my foot, but I know people have been having issues with this upper. This is my second pair of Vaporflies. My first pair, the Hyper Pink pair that you've seen on this channel and other videos, that is pushing about 250 kilometers or about 160 miles or so. And I've not had any stretching on the upper. This one has about 40 kilometers or about 24 miles on it. And again, I would expect this to feel fairly fresh, fairly new, which it does. But again, I'm not getting any sort of stretching or problems with the upper. It fits me really well. This is still a Vaporfly, and Vaporflies are notorious for having fit issues as far as putting your foot in. So it's going to take a little bit of a dance to get your foot locked down the way you want it to. Once it's locked down though, the lockdown in this shoe is great. I have no heel problems. I have great midfoot problems, and I have ample room in the toe box. Absolutely no issues. Let's look at some workout data to really paint a picture about how the experiences in these two shoes really differ for me quite drastically through the data of the workouts. So this is a workout that I created mostly to test both these shoes and to really run them through a bunch of different paces. So it starts with 6K warm-up done easy. It's got some 400s, it's got some 1K repeats, and it's got 2 miles of marathon pace, which is currently 4:30 per km for me. That's what I'm currently training for in New York City. And then we got 5K cool down done easy as well. I did fuel both these workouts with a Martin Drink Mix 320 CAF 100 about 2.5 hours before I actually went out. And as you can see, the temperatures for both these workouts, which were done about a week apart, were very hot. So 33 to 34 degrees Celsius, which is about 91 to 93 degrees Fahrenheit. High humidity, 79% to 87% humidity. And this is at 8:30 in the morning. That's very typical of what I run in here in Taipei, Taiwan. And this summer has been exceptionally hot. So this is par for the course for what I've been running in for months now. I will say the Asics Metaspeed Sky Plus workout came at the end of about a 4-week block of me running only in Asics shoes, mostly the Sky Plus and the Super Blast with the Little Magic Speed 3, mostly to test how Asics worked for me and how I responded to them. And then the Vaporfly 3 workout was done about 8 days after that, when I had fully transitioned back into Nike shoes, mostly Peg 40s and Vaporfly 3s only. And I was running now fully in Nike shoes. And it was the first run that I did in the silver pair of Vaporfly 3s that you see in this video. So fresh Vaporfly 3s compared to Sky Pluses that had about 80 miles or 130 kilometers in them. Now, the Sky Plus is a very durable shoe. So at 80 miles or 130 kilometers, I didn't feel like it was anywhere near that shoe feeling broken or worn out. It just kept feeling better and better, whereas the Vaporfly 3s were fresh. So let's look at the data. So for the Sky Plus, starting with the 400s, as you can see, none of them are within the 90 seconds. Again, all of this workout was done on a road, a mix of kind of false flats and rolling hills. I did do the 400s on the flattest section of my training route that I work on. It's a bit of a false flat, so 2 of these were up that false flat, 2 were down, so it's a wash. There's no real hill there. The 1K repeats and the 2 miles were done on rolling hills with hills specifically trying to target what I would run into in New York City. So again, as you can see in the 400s, none of them hit the mark in the Metaspeed Sky, but I'm not surprised there because in the Metaspeed Sky, there's a ton of foam and a ton of toe rocker, which I know I don't like. I feel like it gets in the way when I'm doing anything faster, so not surprised to see that. As far as the 1K repeats and the 2 miles, it's not that far off, but there's some clear things in the data that are really telling. Let's look at the Nike though. So for the 400s in the Nike, as you can see, they're all within very close to my goal of 90 seconds. and my cadence was where I wanted it to be. So I try to run about 180 cadence, and as you can see in the Metaspeed Sky Plus, I'm lower, which makes sense given that that's their Stride Runner shoe. But in the Vaporfly 3, I'm right on the mark, if not a little bit above. And again, I'm not surprised that I'm faster in the 400s in the Vaporfly 3. The 2x1K, as you can see in the Vaporfly 3, I'm below the time and my cadence is where it should be, but it's kind of even there. But what really is telling to me is in the 2 mile of marathon effort, the Vaporfly 3 is much faster for me, but the cadence is better. And more importantly, the HR at 162 is exactly where I want to be. It's at the upper end of where I want to be. The range I really want to be running in as far as HR is about 155 to 163 or so in there. Anything more than that, especially in the 170s, like in the Metaspeed Sky Plus, it's too much. It's too much effort, and that's a totally different zone for me that I do not want to be into. And in this heat, I'm actually totally fine with those. So the Vaporfly 3 is considerably faster for me, and it's much more efficient, which you can see in this data. Now, I will say, after I ran the workout in the Metaspeed Sky Plus, my legs were destroyed, sore for days after, whereas in the Vaporfly 3, I wasn't sore at all. I actually felt pretty good. This is the part of the versus videos that I do where I typically would give you a verdict. And in this one, I will say that it's an obvious, I prefer the Vaporfly 3. The other thing I'll say is after that workout of the data we just looked at, my legs were totally fine. I could go run the next day. And in fact, the day after that, so I did the workout on I think it was a Thursday. On that Saturday, I did a long run in the other pair of Vaporflies I have. No problems. I'm, again, not surprised because I respond really well to ZoomX and I recover really well from running in ZoomX. And in Vaporfly 3s, it really sort of all comes together for me. Now, again, I knew pretty well that I preferred this shoe, but I'm actually shocked how clear the data makes it for me. So this is the shoe I'm going to be racing New York City in. This is still my primary race shoe. This is the shoe that I prefer. That's not to say this shoe's bad. I actually think this is a great shoe. If you watch my full review of this shoe, I did have some problems with tripping in this shoe. The data is showing that it's not the most efficient shoe for me, which makes sense for me given the design of this shoe, that it's meant for stride runners. When I did the Asics test, are you a cadence or stride runner? It came out that I'm a cadence runner, but I'm actively trying to elongate my stride. I talked a lot about this in my marathon training series. I'll put a link in the description to that as well. So this shoe is really good. The end result of running for about 4 weeks exclusively in this shoe and the Super Blast was that I did elongate my stride by about 6 to 12 centimeters, which is about 2 to 4 inches, which is not a lot, but consistently I did add to my stride. I elongated my stride, which was great. And when I'm in the Vaporfly, I think it's really apparent because my HR is lower, my cadence is spot on to where I want it. It's not too fast, which I have a tendency of going up to like 190 when I'm really trying to do something fast like 400s. But now it's very much controlled. If you go back and look at that data, it was definitely around 180, which is where I want to be. So this shoe was a great training option for me, and I'm glad I ran in it because it really helped me become, I think, a more efficient runner and really work on my stride, which was a goal of the marathon build I'm in. This shoe helped exceptional. But it's not a race shoe for me. I'm not the runner for this shoe. But that's not anything negative against this shoe. I think this shoe's outstanding. And if you're a runner who likes a lot of toe rocker, likes a lot of foam under your forefoot, and can make all that work and likes a much stiffer shoe overall that's going to roll you forward as opposed to what the Vaporfly does, which it does roll you forward, but it encourages you to get up on your toes and be more active and really push off on that. Because the Nike plate, which, as you remember, starts high in the heel, dips in the forefoot, and then comes very close to the ground, then curves up. This dip, I think, is a key, and I've talked about this before, but I think it's a key thing about what makes the Vaporfly so special. is that when you're on your forefoot and you're landing and you're flattening out the plate. So if you think about the plate as sort of a concave shape, when you're planting your forefoot, you're flattening it out. But also, since the Nike has this additional drop in the midfoot, you're flattening it out in both sides. So both under the toe and in the midfoot. So when you're up on your toe, if you're a forefoot striker, you're getting this sort of pop out that's very unique to a Vaporfly for forefoot strikers. Now, if you're a heel striker in this shoe, I've heard it's very annoying because you're striking, you're getting all this foam under the plate, you're compressing it, you're rolling into the midfoot and the forefoot, and now you're compressing a second chunk of foam under the forefoot. So it feels like you're compressing twice for heel strikers. There's a slight delay between that, which makes sense. But for a midfoot striker, or especially a forefoot striker, this shoe I think is really optimal, and the magic of the Vaporfly plate is really optimal. This shoe has the plate that's very close to the foot, so all the way across the shoe, it's very close to the foot, which means you get a ton of leverage to really load up and pound into all of this FF Turbo foam under the plate. So you get a ton of leverage on that. This shoe runs much more similar to something like an Alphafly because, again, you have this flatter plate closer to the foot that you're loading up a bunch of material under with all the leverage of that carbon fiber plate and the weight of your body and your strike. I do think this shoe benefits forefoot, midfoot, definitely forefoot strikers very well. But since FF Turbo is a bit of a stiffer foam, much firmer compared to Zoom X, I think for heel strikers, you're going to get the absorption, which is going to bring you into the forefoot, and then you're going to have all this toe rocker and toe spring rolling you forward. I think if you're a heel striker, you're probably going to enjoy this shoe much more than you would the Vaporfly 3. Thank you for making it to the end of the video. If you like this type of content, consider subscribing because you'll see more content like this pop up in your feed. If not, drop a like on this video because it helps this channel continue to grow, which I will always appreciate. And with that, I'll catch you in the next one.